Hey everyone, welcome to the latest video. Today's topic is values, what's important. And it's pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about values because values are important, and you're going to hopefully learn about how values impact the rest of your life, your thinking, your feelings, and ultimately your behavior. So it all starts with values. So let's get into that. Oops, sorry. So it's brought to you by taking the escalator. Thanks. Okay, so before we get started, I want you to get out a pen and paper, put away any stray animals if you're at home. I know that feeling. And let's get ready to focus. The whole purpose of these videos are that you actually cooperate and participate while it's going on. So if you have paper or pen and you're ready to write, I'm going to instruct you at different points during the video to write your thoughts and feelings down, and so that what ultimately will happen is your counselor, when the video is over, will go back and talk to you about what you wrote down, because ultimately this is about making your life better. We all want that, and hopefully you're in this program to try to focus on that. So, and really you're going to see how values is such an essential part of all that. So let's move forward. Hopefully with me all doing all that talking, you got your pen and paper out and you're ready to go. So just to be sure, let's talk about what are values. You know, it's a pretty common word. We all know what values are, but let's make sure that we know what do we mean by this idea of values. And so let's just start with a definition. Values are someone or something we consider to be important or beneficial or to have a high opinion of. So our values are meaningful to us. They're important to us. And again, we're going to focus on how our values and our priorities, how we put our values in a certain order, that really drives who we are. And our values change. And you know what? Changing our values is a good thing, especially when we're improving our values. So let's talk a little more about that. So just as a way, we're gonna try to make the connection between values and thinking and feeling and behavior. So think for a minute. Again, you can get your pen and paper out. Who or what can get an emotional reaction from you? So maybe you want to think of some examples that are positive, a positive emotional reaction, or a negative one, something that makes you happy or something that makes you angry. Something that makes you happy could be, somebody handing you some money. Man, that makes me happy, right? I like that. Or something that makes you angry, somebody being really annoying and getting on your nerves and they won't shut up. That could be something that makes you irritated or angry. So think of a personal example. Give you a second. What gets a reaction from you? And we're gonna talk about some of those things. So write something down. All right. Don't pretend. Focus. Write some down. Participate. You want to get something out of this, right? Okay. So let's start with an example. Again, if we were doing this live, I'd ask you for your examples, but we're not here. We're recorded. So I picked one that's very common. I can identify with it. Hopefully a lot of people here can. When someone lies to me, I feel angry, right? That usually gets nobody likes to be lied to. So that's just a good example of a negative one. So we're going to discuss some examples. And a more positive one that gets an emotional reaction might be, I feel such a sense of satisfaction when I get my paycheck. And that's, depending on your job, but the one good part is at the end of the week, that paycheck, it's a very satisfying feeling. Okay, oh, that's why I did that. Oh, okay. Obviously you get satisfaction from work itself, hopefully, but there's nothing like that paycheck at the end. It's very nice. So so those are two examples, but I want you to record your own as well, but we're going to talk about this for the sake of the video. Okay. So, okay. All right. I'm giving you more time here. Make sure you got some of your own examples. So some positive ones, some negative ones, jot them down. What gets a reaction out of you? And, be specific and come up with your own. Hopefully you can list some out. Don't get mesmerized by the GIF in the middle. Focus, write some things down. Okay. Hopefully that was enough time. So let's break it down. Let's look at our examples. We're going to look at how these things in our life that get reaction out of us, they really are tied to our values. So let's break it down. Let's go back to this example. When someone lies to me, I feel so angry. And that is directly tied to our values. So let's think about how some of the values that are related to that. So people value honesty, trust, friendship, loyalty. It's usually underlying values that like those that drive the emotional reaction. There's a close connection there. When you care about something, when you care about trust, someone lies to you, that hurts your trust. You get a reaction, right? Let's look at the other example. I feel such a satisfaction when I get my paycheck. And what are some of the underlying values behind that? Why do we feel that sense of satisfaction? Because we value money. This society values money because we use it to get things, and we value security. The money brings some security with it, right? It's nice to be able to pay the bills. You might value hard work, that sense of accomplishment, and a lot of people value that sense of self-sufficiency, saying, okay, this is my money. I earn this. It's a beautiful feeling. So just brought this out because I really want to start help your brain and all of us to think about that connection, how our emotions, our thoughts are connected with our values. It's all tied together. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, if we were live, I'd ask some questions, but I'm hoping you got it. So let's start again, get that pen and paper out. Think about your own values. What's important to you? You know, there's a lot of similarities, but let's talk about some values here. So there's a lot of common examples, and maybe some of these are important to you. You can feel free to use this list, some of these lists, but try to come up with your own. Love is very important to people, right? Hopefully, it's a nice one. Family is another value. You know, people do all kinds of things for family. Money, common value. You need money, right? Freedom, right? Who doesn't like some freedom? Who doesn't like a lot of freedom? It's a very highly valued thing. Loyalty is a common one, you know, right? You want to be able to trust people around you. Health is another common value. You know, nobody wants to be sick, right? Career is a common value, you know, moving forward in some kind of direction. Happiness, right? I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be happy. Respect, huge one, right? Think about all the people that fight and do all these things over respect because it's such a powerful value. Your future, right? We all value our future. We want it to go in a positive direction. It's something important to us. Relationships, people we choose to be with romantically and as well as friendships. It's a value. Those are people we value. Your beliefs, right? You might stand behind your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, your different beliefs in different other life areas, scientific beliefs, whatever it is. You might really, want to argue or fight if someone challenges your beliefs because they're important to you. And obviously fun, having fun, recreation, a hobby, right? If we're going to tie this to getting high, right? It starts out fun, doesn't it? But it doesn't always stay that way. But it's a value. We want some fun in our life. And having some kind of mental intelligence and growing mentally. Nobody wants to be stagnant. Most people want to learn more and have some kind of education or growth. So those are some common values. So you can use some of them on this list, but try to come up with some of your own. Why don't you make a nice values list? If you can come up with 5 to 10 on your own. What are things specific to you? Who or what is important to you? Because that's how we're going to learn how to change. You got to really focus on what your values are. So now that you got your list, so it doesn't have to be this list here, but let's say you got your own list in front of you. Think about how substance use, or more strongly addiction, can cause someone to hurt, jeopardize, or compromise what's important to them. So go through your list and think about the things in your life that you might have compromised even a little bit because of substance use. So for example, money, unless you're getting your drugs 100% for free, you've lost some money from getting high. Just spending it. It gets costly, right? Drugs aren't cheap, especially when you get a tolerance and you start using more, it adds up. Respect, maybe you lost some respect of your family and community, things like that, especially getting arrested, that can take a hit on the respect level. Maybe you're in a legal situation right now, a child protective situation or a probation or IDRC, a DUI type situation. You probably lost a little freedom because of that substance use. Maybe things now you used to do, maybe you had some hobbies. It's quite common. You get into drug use and All of a sudden those hobbies go down the tubes because the substance use takes over. So you see how this goes. You might not be as smart as you once were. All those things, your future might be jeopardized. Loyalty, did you get backstabbed or backstab others in that whole drug game? You know how that works. You might have compromised your health, relationships. So you get the picture. Hopefully you can do that with your own list. Think about how your substance use has jeopardized things that were important to you. And that's a good way to think about, build some motivation for change. Be like, hey, look, this drug use, as good as it felt in the moment, the long-term result is, things that were important to me really got impacted. Okay. So really laying it on the line. As substance use becomes a problem, our values are increasingly compromised. So people in this group, I'm sure, have different levels of where they are as far as their insight and their motivation to change. But anywhere you are along that spectrum, hopefully you can start to grasp the idea that, the deeper you get into this, the more the substance use gets worse and worse, your values tend to go down the tubes. And I'm not saying that every value you have is going to go down the tubes. Maybe they did for you, but some definitely do. I'm sure that some people crossed out some things on their list. There's nobody here that was completely got high and had absolutely not one consequence, or you probably wouldn't be here, right? I'm sure several things happened. Okay. So we don't want to be negative here. We want this to be about being positive, right? So you want to overcome substance use issues and addiction by considering our values. So how can we think about our values to make things better? So really, why are you here? Here you're in some group therapy program or whatever you're in. Maybe you're doing this individually, whatever. But you're probably here because if it's a substance use situation, you want to change behaviors. Let's think of some of the behaviors you might want to change. Again, if we were in a group live, I'd ask you guys, but I'm going to try to come up with some examples, and hopefully we can consider them as a video. What behaviors might you need to change? Okay, you might want to jot some down. Overspending. Again, these are just examples. Not saying it's true for everybody. Lying, commonly associated with substance use, right? Especially when it gets worse. Maybe neglecting some responsibilities. Calling out of work. Not taking care of the bills, different things. You know how that goes, right? Procrastinating, putting off important things. So, I didn't want to give up. Those are just examples, and I'm not saying that's true for everybody or anybody here, but I want you to come up with your own examples. What are some behaviors? You're here, you're hopefully trying to get the most out of this program. What do you want to change? What are some behaviors? Write down some that you want to change to improve your life. Okay, so hopefully I gave you enough time to do that. Behaviors are strongly impacted by our feelings. So let's analyze how that works. So think about how you behave when you're angry and stressed out. So you wake up in the morning, you're pissed, you're just having a bad day. How are you going to behave? Think about that. Think about how your feelings are going to drive how you talk to people, how you look at people, the face you have on, maybe the choices you make, what you end up doing, right? Think about that connection, how you're feeling, those feelings will directly impact your behavior. Think about when you're driving and you're angry and you're stressed out. Things like that. There's a direct connection. Now think about when you're happy and carefree. So, you might be in a good mood and everything's great, and then think about your behaviors. They're probably completely different. So just bring this up to really want to consider how your feelings are directly tied to your behavior, right? So a good example might be, imagine someone bumps into you. Somebody bumps into you when you're angry or stressed out, or somebody bumps into you when you're happy and carefree. The difference in your behavior. I think I might even. Feelings are tough, though. Feelings can be challenging to change. It's like it's not as easy as just snapping your finger and being like, okay, I don't want to be sad anymore. Boom, I'm just going to be happy. I wish it was that easy. I can't even. Nobody can. It's sometimes you can bounce out of it, but there's just times, man, it's rough. Believe me, I know it's. Or just, hey, don't be angry. It's not that easy. They can be real challenging to change. Feelings can be really deep-rooted, right? They can come from your childhood. In fact, you get a lot of your feelings based on on your upbringing and how you learned and how you were communicated with, and things like trauma and things like shame and guilt. These things can be very deep rooted and very, very hard to shake. So if you're having trouble with feelings, you're not alone. If you came from a dysfunctional situation, you can have some real deep rooted feelings that can be tough. But they can be tough. Again, as I brought up, it's not so easy to say, hey, just be happy or stop being angry, or just because it's the right thing to do. But they can be very strong, and they can take time and effort to manage. So just want to put that out there in case anybody's struggling with their feelings. Therapy helps, and it takes time. So now we broke down feelings. Let's talk about, I want you to get your pens and paper out again and write down, what are some feelings that might be challenging for you sometimes? And I gave up some examples. Again, I'd probably just ask you guys if we were live, but anger is a common one. Maybe for some, but not others, but it's a very common one. Anger can be rough. Stress is a rough one. Frustration, sadness, guilt. These are all, can be very challenging feelings. Being overwhelmed. So I just brought, again, some examples to get you guys thinking. So I'm going to give you guys a second to write down some of your feelings that you might be personally struggling with. So put it on your paper. So again, you're going to talk about this afterwards with your counselor, hopefully. Okay, so let's talk about thinking. So remember we said how difficult our feelings can be to change? Well, our thinking can be a lot easier to change. So there's a lot to be learned here. Our thinking often fuels our feelings. So consider an example, right? Somebody puts their arm on your shoulder, right? And people have all kinds of reactions to that. How can your thoughts in that situation fuel your feelings? Let's break that down. So let's say you think somebody came and put their arm around you, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't like this person. Some creep, whatever, somebody you really don't like. The boss you can't stand comes over and puts his hands on your shoulders or whatever, or whoever it is. All those creepy situations. Somebody. How's that going to affect you're going to have those thoughts like, oh, this person repulses me, or I don't like this person, or I don't respect this person, or this person doesn't know me good enough. Your thoughts are going to definitely bring about different feelings. Now think about, this is somebody I really like, somebody you care about, somebody maybe you're attracted to, or you have a real strong tie with. They come over and they put their arm around you. Now think about how you're going to feel. Completely different. Maybe you've been waiting for this person to come and then somehow, give you some kind of physical contact. You might walk away. You're definitely going to walk away with a completely different feeling. So again, this example shows our thinking is directly tied to our feelings. Okay. All right. So here we go. We're tracing this all the way back to values. Finally, it is our values, what is important to us, that has the greatest impact on our thinking. So remember, we started with behavior, and then we talked about feelings, then we talked about thinking, but values is what starts our thoughts. So example, how often do you think about what is important to in your life? If you value money, you probably think about money. If you value your career, you probably think about your career. If someone values drugs, think about when you were getting high. You probably thought about getting high all the time. If you value sports, you think about sports. I love sports. It could be, the middle of the night, and I could start thinking about trades my favorite team is going to do. If you value a person, think about how much you value that person. You value your children. How much do you think about your children? Or if you have attraction towards someone, think about how much you think about that person. Your values, what's important to you, dominates your thinking usually. And if anybody here is in active addiction or recently was, you think about that. How when you value that getting high, how much is your thoughts focus? And I know from being a counselor, I've been a counselor for quite a long time, and had sessions with people just spending 45 minutes of the session explaining in great detail how they went and picked up, or somebody who's like into prescription drugs, saying, oh, I this one, if I mix this one with that, and this is or this dosage, and you can spend a lot of time thinking about things that you value. So our values and thinking are very, very closely tied together. What's important to us has a great impact on our thinking. So let's put it all together. So now we're starting from the beginning. I worked backwards. So the first thing that starts this whole chain is our values. What is important? That's why I put that heart there. What hits us in the heart? What is important is what starts this whole process we're going to talk about here. Our values affect our thinking, as we just explained, right? And what do we say before about our thinking? Our thinking has a great impact on our feelings. And our feelings, right? Remember, whether you're angry and you're sad, you wake up and you have a good day or a bad day, that's going to really impact our behavior. Okay? So this is a very important process, but I wanted to show that values is at the start of this process. And remember, the thing we want to change is at the end. You want to change that behavior, but it all starts with values. Values affects our thinking, which affects our feeling, which affects our behavior. And it also, like I said, you kind of said it here, it spelled it out. It starts with our values. If we want to change our behavior, right? If you're here and you want to stop using, you want to work on your depression, you want to work on your anxiety, a lot of it starts with our values. Overcoming addiction starts with our values. What's important? What isn't? Getting better is about establishing new values. If you leave this program, you should have your values should be, they won't be completely different, but they should be moving in a different direction. So a little illustration that kind of shows values is make sure I don't mess it up. The old ditch digger story. Okay, I'm just gonna read it to you. So two men are on the side of the road with shovels. Each one's digging a large hole. You walk up to the first man and he's digging slowly. He looks irritated and frustrated. So you ask the first man, "What are you doing?" He angrily grunts out, "I'm digging a hole." Right? So there he is just digging. He's all pissed and he's digging, doing his job, but he's not happy doing it. Then you walk up to the second man. He's on the side of the road and he's in another large hole and he's digging. However, he doesn't look upset or angry. He looks focused and determined, and he's working enthusiastically at a steady pace. You ask the second man, "What are you doing?" And he looks back at you with a smile on his face and proudly says, "I'm helping build a hospital." So you see, that illustration kind of focuses how we value, our focus, our attitude about a situation really kind of determines our behavior. Okay, so just to sum it up, again, another trippy thing to stare at while we talk about, I want to leave the processing part for you and your counselor here. So hopefully you wrote this down. You wrote down values, you wrote down behaviors, you wrote down feelings, and you wrote down thoughts. And now we can turn this video off and you guys can start focusing and talking about how you can change some of these things to change for the better. Thank you. All right. Appreciate your time. Be good.